As I introduce my good friend, Dr. Kevin Smith from SATS, I'm reminded him and I were in the group together with MIT in 6 weeks, and we listened to the professor, we did the online material, and then every week on a Friday, we had a Zoom with about 25 of us, and we discussed what we learned. And that was incredibly helpful. And one of the professors from MIT said, I asked him, because we had him do some seminars and information sessions with us with Teach Every Nation. I asked him, how profound is AI compared to other technological breakthroughs in the past? Here's what he said. I don't know if I agree with this, but this is what he said. He said, Martin, you take the invention of fire, the wheel, the printing press, the telephone, the fax machine, the GPS, all of it together. AI is a bigger deal than all the combined impact of all those things. Now, I think it's an overstatement. He doesn't. And there are futurists that will agree with him. And if you don't know it, your teenagers know it already. They are in it in a big time. And it's still very interesting to me. There are people that I still introduce to AI that's in their 40s and 50s that have never used it. They talked about it. They have opinions about it. Something the devil is very involved with it. They're scared of it. I'm scared of it too. But once you have started using it as a tool, not as a theological guru, that remember, AI will, if you're a heretic, it will make you a better heretic over time. Because it's going to learn what you like and it's going to feed you your bias. Unless you astutely ask it prompts and questions. But there are so many other useful things in life. So if you are happy or critical about it, do understand that in every domain, there's pros and cons to it. But we're going to have Kevin now tell us what are their thinking now of how to relate with this revolution at SATS. Give him a big hand as he gives his final session. Thank you.
We're involved in online theological education. And over the last 30 years, almost every technological advance that has taken place has been beneficial to SATS. Every advance has somehow been advantageous to us. It's allowed us to communicate better or do things that take the distance out of distance education until AI. And when the new revolution of generative AI struck, it was a massive question for us. How do we defend academic integrity? How do we facilitate learning when the key method we've always used to facilitate learning is no longer going to be effective in the scary world in which we live? So a couple of months ago, we went away as a SATS leadership team and spent 3 days strategizing for the future, not specifically about the implications of AI, but guess what the single biggest issue on the table was? And what I heard was our leaders talking about how are we going to survive in an AI world? What do we do as a higher education online institution in order to survive? And I started to hear this language of survival. And my heart just thought something is off here. We're asking entirely the wrong question. The question is not how do we survive, but how do we thrive in a changed world? If necessary, how do we completely reinvent our pedagogy and our philosophy of education in order to remain relevant to the world in which our students now live and serve? We have to figure out how to thrive, not how to survive. If the mentality is we need to survive this changing reality, we're going to enter into the changes that we have to make in our philosophy and thinking with reluctance and resentment. We're going to start to think in terms of nonsense like policing and prohibiting the use of AI, which is a self-defeating path. So we've been thinking deeply about how we respond as an institution for a couple of years already. I want to share some of our anecdotal, one online institution's reflection to how do we begin to thrive, or how do we continue to thrive in this changing reality. I want to suggest the single most important thing we need to do is we need to embrace the existence of AI. We need to have a mindset that says, this is our world. Whether we wish it was our world, whether we want to look back to when we didn't have to deal with these things with nostalgic terms, whether we want to be like the Israelites that have come out of Egypt and seem to remember that when they were in Egypt, they were only eating steak. And the reality is, this is our world. It's a technological revolution that fundamentally changes everything and fundamentally changes higher education. And we live in that world. So we need to embrace the fact that this is the world we live in. In our leadership conversation, I can't even remember who it was, but someone made the point as we were tossing to and fro different lines of response. Someone sounded a really good alarm. She said, whether you like it or not, your students love AI. They love using it. They love working with it. Some of them are falling in love with it, even developing emotional attachments. The reality is, the people we serve love it and use it all the time. And we have to help them to do that. If we prohibit it, if we try to swim upstream against it, we're only going to be alienating the very students we want to serve. We want to help to function in this world. The world we are serving a few years ago, we're serving, no longer exists. And there's no point in fighting the current reality. Gamaliel had some good advice in the book of Acts. The second critical point I would make is that there is no way we are going to try and... We actually tried to police it. But there's no way you can prevent and police the use of AI. If we even want to try as an institution, we would have to employ 10 full-time people whose sole job was to try and investigate cases of AI usage. And it's self-defeating because there is no foolproof way to prove that anyone has used AI. The plagiarism detectors are trying to keep themselves in business. So if you're used to using software like Turnitin or CopyLeaks or any of those kinds of tools, they will tell you they've got AI detection algorithms. They don't work. Because the only way those algorithms can work is that they have to look at the probability that a human would have used certain patterns of writing compared to the probability that a machine would use the same patterns of writing. And then what they tell you, the high likelihood of AI simply means that the style and patterning of the writing is probably more common to a machine than a human. But the machine was trained on human writing. So the policing strategy is self-defeating, and it's absolutely soul-destroying. So as an institution, we have decided that we are not going to try and police AI usage at all. It's built into every tool that our students use. My copy of Microsoft Word has AI operating indigenously to it, as no doubt many of theirs do. We know we're going to be using it. And frankly, it's really cool. Why would we want to police and prevent something that opens up cool opportunities, learning challenges notwithstanding? So we're thinking of canning our plagiarism detection software altogether. The age of trying to detect plagiarism seems to be past. Leave you with that challenge. Another response is that we're abandoning grading written projects. So SATS has historically been based, our pedagogy has been based on written assignments. Exams used to play a very small part in how we functioned. The main learning strategy we used was assignments. for all the reasons that I articulated before, the positive learning value of thinking through and writing and producing something. But there was an assumption built into the learning strategy, an assumption that used to be true. The assumption is this, that the product reliably reflects the competence of the producer. Must I say that again? The assumption was that a product reliably reflects the competency of the producer. In other words, the premise was that the student who submitted an assignment, that assignment was a reliable indicator of what the student understood and was able to do. So the product reflected the competency of the producer. It's most extreme with a doctoral dissertation. And we live in a higher education framework that hasn't moved yet. So hopefully it's going to get with the program. But when you award a PhD to somebody, the premise is that the dissertation reflects the kind of pinnacle research skills that are associated with the award of a PhD. And it implies that the dissertation is sufficient evidence that the person who wrote it, produced it, has mastered those skills. That premise is now false. Because somebody who understands very little can produce something that looks highly competent. And so there's a divorce between the product and the producer. For all you know, nothing I'm telling you this morning was written by me. None of it reflects my understanding, for all you know. How do you know? So for us as an institution, pedagogy has to change fundamentally. That we're no longer measuring written products or other kinds of products. It doesn't help to say submit a video because the AI can script the video. It doesn't help to say submit it in a different format because the content and the thinking still doesn't necessarily reflect the understanding of the person submitting it. So projects and essays for us, we're just one institution. Where are we at? Projects and essays, we'll continue to require them, but they are now going to be preparation for assessment rather than the object of assessment. So write your assignment, complete your project, and then we're going to have an interview or an examination or a conversation or something where we try to assess and measure what did you learn through the process. And if you outsourced the process in its entirety to an AI, you won't be able to answer the questions of what you should have learned through the process. But if you use the AI liberally to produce the product, but you still read the required sources and thought through them and are able to speak to them in a manner that's critical, I don't care how you produced the product. All I care is that you learned what you needed to learn through the process and that you're able to champion and defend and articulate the learning outcomes, whether you did it with or without augmented reality. So we as an institution are in the middle of a process of completely revamping literally every course and every assessment that we offer. It's a sizable undertaking. There's well over 100 courses. Why? Because we want people to learn. We want to equip them to learn and function in an AI world where they are going to use those tools. Prohibiting and policing it is not going to work. So our basic strategy is to say, we embrace this. This is our reality. Does it come with challenges? Sure. Does it come with opportunities? Amazing opportunities. We need to teach our people to use AI ethically and effectively to flourish and thrive in the new reality in which they live and serve the Lord Jesus Christ. So what does that look like? I've been through waves of excitement and despair about this thing over the last 2 or 3 years, waves of emotion that come and go, but I've settled onto the conviction that if we get the pedagogy changes right, this could end up being one of the best developments ever to happen for SATs. There's a lot we need to get right. There's a lot we need to rethink. And if we embrace the strategy of a dying church, which is we've never done it this way before, we will soon be a dead seminary. We dare not do that. We have to adapt in order to thrive. So our challenge, friends, how do we learn to thrive? Not survive. How do we learn to thrive? Providing great learning experiences, maybe not able to use the methods that we've traditionally used, but rethinking the educational product in a way that continues to produce people fit for ministry and leadership in the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ. This is our challenge. This is our opportunity. Let's embrace it with gusto and figure out how best to do it.